Welcome to the Volvo Ocean Race 2014-15 and welcome to Brazil. It's import race day. The teams arrived here in Itajai 2 weeks ago. The warmth of this Brazilian summer, a welcome contrast to the Southern Ocean battle from New Zealand and around Cape Horn. After a tense final phase with 4 boats in contention, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing were first to arrive here to fire home their second leg victory. It was a big moment for Ian Walker as he looks to win the Volvo Ocean Race, something he's been trying to do for more than 7 years. Mafre finished just 32 minutes behind in second place, a special moment for native Brazilian Andre Fonseca and a sign of improvement in form that has been a long time coming for this team. Team Alvi Medica and Team Brunel both crossed the line just an hour after the winner. The 2 boats locked into a match race finish that has come to be the standout characteristic of this 12th edition of the Round the World race. And just over a day later, after a strong wind beating up the South American coast, Team SCA arrived, the last of the fleet to make it here in racing mode. More of that later, but right now, today, it's the Team Vestas Wind import race Itajai, scheduled to start at 1700 UTC.
I'm Niall Mayan, and joining me for commentary today, we have Richard Mason, 4-time competitor in the Volvo Ocean Race, and now Team SCA Shore Manager. Well, we're here in Itajai for the 6th import race. The import series has its own trophy and its own competition, but it also acts as an important tiebreaker for the overall series. So, critical to score well.
Absolutely critical. We could well be in Gothenburg in a situation where our first and second boats are tied, and it's going to fall back to the series to break that tiebreaker. Racing around the world so close that it falls back on this series could be an unbelievable result. You can't let anything go out there today.
Our 4 teams have each claimed an import victory, Team SCA being the only team to claim 2. Could today be the day for Mafre, Team Brunel to get their own?
Well, let's hope not. It's been a great trend for SCA that we'd like to continue. But no, it's going to be very light conditions out there today. Any person's game, fingertip sailing, it's going to be a tricky old day. So we'll see how it comes out on top.
Well, leg 5 is always billed as the major leg for the Volvo Ocean Race. Its iconic landmark of Cape Horn being a favourite with sailors worldwide. And the leg did not disappoint. Broken sails, broken rudder, and even a broken mast. A fantastic leg to look back on.
The cyclone warning is for coastal areas from Port Hedland to Ningaloo.
And severe tropical cyclone Pam continues to intensify. The latest maximum 1-minute sustained winds have increased to 115 knots.
The damage inflicted by one of the most powerful cyclones ever to hit the South Pacific.
We're obviously monitoring the tropical cyclone Pam very, very carefully. We have decided that we will not start the race before Tuesday.
There's a bit of anxiety, especially heading in the Southern Ocean. First part is just to chase this cyclone Pam as long as we can. We're just in the tail end of it here.
Have that problem in the rigger.
Basically the biggest damage was our throw, which split into 2 big pieces.
Mafre there, America here.
So we have Abu Dhabi, and then it's coming Brunel. We're gonna pass them.
Keep things in one piece. We also want to ring this race. Very close to Point Nemo, which is the furthest point from land, anywhere on the planet there.
This champagne table.
Should be a pretty wet and wild ride.
to the horns.
Slowly, this is good speed, no faster.
But very happy at Ushuaia, and after that thinking to be at the start in Itajai. Most important.
Right, just gone past the line of longitude of Cape Horn. As you can see, big smiles. Left, right? Right there, where we want them. Dead astern.
First 3/4 within 9 miles of each other, which is pretty great.
Just made the last deck, probably the final approach to Itajai.
It's not over until the fat lady sings, eh?
With racing scheduled for the afternoon here in Itajai, Abu Dhabi skipper Ian Walker took on a challenge he knew it would take a miracle to win. Keepy uppies against Brazilian 3-time World Cup player Cafu. Cafu won 2 of those World Cups, a parallel perhaps not recognised by the women of Team SCA, the only team to have won 2 import races in this Volvo Ocean race so far. Team SCA were followed by the team who won the very first import race back in Alicante and who led the fleet around Cape Horn, Alvi Medica. Bauer Becking hit the dock knowing his team is tied on points in the import series but needing to find something better on the ocean legs. A contrast to Abu Dhabi skipper Ian Walker, who tops both leaderboards and walked to the dock alongside Cafu and ahead of Adil Khalid, who is back on the boat after illness. Dongfeng skipper Charles Cordrelia stepped onto his boat to race for the first time since a new mast was fitted here in Itajai. The mast loss cost Dongfeng a chance at a share of the overall race lead. Today's dock out was not charged with the emotion that will be the mood tomorrow. The race leader and his guest even had time to celebrate with the crowd. While out at sea, the Spanish team Mafre were engaged in more serious preparations, tuning up their repaired mast in readiness to race. The battering of leg 5 has brought significant changes to the shape of the scoreboard. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing still lead, but have opened up a 7-point lead on Dongfeng Race Team after the Chinese boat retired from leg 5. The pack has closed in on Dongfeng. Team Brunel have held on to 3rd, but only 2 points now separate the Dutch team, Alvi Medica and Mafre. Team SCA are 9 points adrift from the pack, but as Dongfeng found to their cost, 9 points are easily lost. And if the women's team can find form heading north and then on into Europe, they can still trouble the boats ahead. The big improvers over the last 2 legs have been the crew of Mafre, who have finished 1st and 2nd. But they ran into trouble as they hit the Brazilian dock, and 2 days ago they were sitting in front of the international jury being dealt a 2-point penalty for altering their one design boat without permission. Being penalised for reinforcing their bow section at sea on the Southern Ocean was something skipper Xabi Fernandez was not happy about.
Mafre shall be penalised with the addition of a 2-point penalty added to their overall race score. 2 points penalty. 2 points penalty.
I think it's a huge penalty because, as you know, We are finishing the legs 4 boats in 1 hour, more or less, and we are fighting very, very hard for 1 point, and to lose 2 points like this is huge.
Meanwhile, the import scoreboard remains very important, as this will be the tiebreak if needed for the overall Volvo Ocean Race. After 5 races, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Brunel are tied on points. Team SCA have featured strongly with 2 wins, putting them in 3rd place. Let's have a look at the skippers for this year's Volvo Ocean Race. Charles Quadrilla broke his mast and was forced to retire from leg 5, meaning Dongfeng has work to do to regroup and refine their racing form heading north from Itajai. Sam Davies, skippering the all-female Team SCA, the only crew to win 2 import races so far. While inexperience has held them back on the ocean legs, they've proved they can win on the inshore courses. Bauer Becking, the Volvo veteran from the Netherlands, is currently tied for the lead in the import series, but the team needs to improve its ocean leg results. Charlie Enright, skipper of the Young Guns from America, is leading a team that is growing in confidence and led the fleet around the iconic Cape Horn. Double Olympic medalist Ian Walker leads both the import series and the Volvo Ocean Race standings. But Walker is not getting complacent, with 45% of the points still to play for. Chris Nicholson, skipper of Team Vestas Wind, is still racing against the clock to get his boat back into the race in Europe after running aground on leg 2. He's with us here on the water today. Xabi Fernandez is skipper of Mafre once again for today's race and the 6th leg, and despite carrying penalty points, is leading a team that is improving on the water. Well, there is the race course area at the moment, and we've had a bit of a mixed bag of weather coming in over the last week. The Pro-Am race yesterday was rough, it was windy. In fact, we had some sailors pretty seasick, but today a little bit light winds, Richard.
Yeah, very light, and a lot of cloud cover, as you can see there in the background of the picture, which is going to keep the breeze down and quite shifty at the moment. It sort of looks like it's a light breeze coming off the shore, and we're kind of hoping that's going to build up and allow us to get a start not too far off.
Well, the good news is that the race officer, the race management team, they're pretty confident, and they are going for a start. They're going for a warning signal at 1400 local time in only 2 minutes. So they're pretty confident that the breeze is building, it's coming in, and we are going to get some racing underway pretty soon. On the water, we have Volvo Ocean Race CEO Knut Frostad. And Knut, we're here for the Team Vestas Wind import race Itajai, and I believe you have somebody from Team Vestas Wind with you.
I do. I have Chris Nicholson with me, and that's the right person to have in the boat on Team Vestas Wind import race. Chris, this is not the first import race you have done with me here.
No, it's not, and it's looking like a very tricky day for all the sailors out here.
And we just had behind us, the AP, we call it, the red and white flag that signals postponement. It was lowered, which means that the delay and postponement is now over, and the race director will start the process for starting. So that's a really good news. Last time we were here 3 years ago, we had very similar situation. We had no wind, we were out drifting here waiting, and suddenly the breeze came. But this day looks a bit different though, doesn't it?
It does, but I remember last time, we didn't have a very good forecast on the day, and yet it ended up really great racing at the end of the day. So hopefully this land breeze will fill in a bit more. It's settled down, it seems to be improving. The sun's out now, so hopefully it makes for good racing.
Well, I mean, as a skipper, what do you think of right now when you are 10 minutes away from a start? There has been no wind. The waves are coming from offshore, big swell here. The breeze from the opposite side on land. Cloud cover is just changing. That was the 10 minutes gun. And what goes through your mind? What is the key priorities for you right now?
Well, always one of the key priorities is to get off the starting line in good order. But because it's so light, there'll be so much disturbed air from the boats, from the waves, and you just want to get off the start line in good shape. You're already looking at which side you want to go to, but you're keeping the plan really flexible because it's so light, and you just know the plan's going to change. We normally have like a 1.5 minute cut-off for a change of plan because you're locked into your side, your position. So, it is regimented, but before that 1.5 minutes, you want to be flexible out here.
And who is winning today? Who's your favorite today for these conditions? Come on.
Well, the girls have been performing so well in all these import races, you know. But Abu Dhabi, they're on a little bit of a roll at the moment. You know, they're feeling really good. They're pretty, they're a bit more laid back than perhaps normal. You know, I'll stick around Abu Dhabi and SCA.
Well, Canute, we're inside the 10 minutes, but I'm wondering from your viewpoint on the water, is it pretty shifty as this breeze is building? What are we going to be in for the next sort of half an hour?
Well, I'm quite impressed that Bill O'Hara actually went for it, because he told us just 5-6 minutes ago that he had seen 60-degree shifts. And 60 degrees is big shifts. I mean, it's not really a settled breeze, but on the other side, the weather has changed because we are having a little blue sky above us. The sun's out. It looks like the cloud cover is getting more sort of sketchy and less cover, I would say. So there is possibility for change, but it wouldn't be sea breeze, though. This is the wrong direction for that. But there is something happening. There's definitely something in the air. You can sense more pressure from land, clearing sky, it's dark outside. What do you think, Nico? What's going to happen?
I'd not being a meteorologist, but I'd probably add comment that, you know, it's like storms look like they're going to start building up out to sea. So whether or not there's some suction going out to those storms. You know, like I don't think you won't see too many of the meteorologists trying to say that they actually know what's going on here today.
Forget the forecast.
And Canute, if we do get this race started, but the breeze does die, it does go a little bit flaky, what options do we have?
Well, the race management has the option of shortening the race. That is always a possibility, and they can make it shorter and they can finish it at a mark before the finish line. So they can shorten the race in different ways. That's always an option for them. They can actually also cancel a race. You know, that if it becomes too shady and it's not really a proper race, they have the right to do that, and that can also happen. If we don't get any racing at all today, which also can happen, what happens then is that the first lap tomorrow, when they start the leg, will count as the import race. We haven't had that so far in the race, thank God, but it could happen. I mean, that's the sport of sailing. Sometimes the weather gods are not with you, but right now there is some breeze here, definitely.
Well, let's have a little bit of a look at the course that we're going to be setting these boats round in just under 7 minutes' time. This is that's the area that we're going to be racing in, just outside the river of Itajai. The start line downwind, they're going to race upwind in the building breeze to a windward gate. Either one of these marks, they can go around, back down to the bottom, and then they sail 3 laps, 6 legs in total before coming back down to the starting area, crossing the line to finish. So 3 laps, it's quite a long race. It's going to be quite challenging.
Yeah, certainly very long, considering it's one other factor there is this river we can see coming out of that harbour entrance. There's a lot of water flowing out of there. So as they sail back towards that, they'll be going against current. It's a little bit tricky to normal tides, that one. It really, there's a big flush as it comes out across the race course. So there's a few other factors in there, including what's going to be very changeable wind conditions.
And we're coming on to the strongest point of the tide as well. High tide was around about midday, so basically this race is going to be raced in full current.
Yeah, there's about a metre of rise and fall in the tide, so there's a good volume of water which will be coming out of that river.
Now, with the breeze being a little bit lighter, how are we expecting to see these boats set up? Are they going to use the A3 going upwind, or is it normal upwind sails?
I think in the start we'll probably see some of the boats manoeuvring with the J1s up, but I think just about every boat out there at the moment, you can see on the front there is the A0s. Now they're the sail that you can use upwind. You probably remember back in Auckland there was some boats had A3s, some boats had A0s. The A0 panned out the winner on the day, but generally the lighter the breeze gets, the more you tend to stay with your A0. So, but that's a big sail to handle. There's a lot of pressure on crew manoeuvres and sail handling. So. It's going to be quite tricky as to when you're choosing an easier sail to manoeuvre, which is the smaller J1, and then switching over to the A0s, which is just all about horsepower.
Well, Canute, you're on the water, and I'm just wondering which end of this start line in this fickle breeze might be the one to go for.
Well, I mean, what we're going to have is what I love, and that is downwind starts. Downwind starts are always interesting because even though you're leading, there is options even from behind. You have to think very, very hard tactically because you need to have clear air. You cannot be covered. You really need to have clear air. So I think tactics downwind is so important. And the speed difference you can have downwind with these big sails. Nico, I mean, downwind starts, we've seen that before in the import races. And what do you think about left and right here? Close to the pin end, close to the start committee. You have pin end, you get the starboard jibe, obviously, and you have that advantage. But what's the favored side right now?
I think it's just so tricky to do the speed builds in this. Like, you know, the instruments can't help you. If you go for the favoured end, more than likely you're going to be in bad air, disturbed air, approaching the line. I think we're going to see the winner of this start. It won't matter what end he's at. He just needs to be on the line, roughly on time at speed, and in clear, and it'll be a huge lead for them.
And the worst you can do in these downwind starts is to be early. Then you're really in trouble, because it's very hard to slow down other than turning the boat around and go the wrong direction.
Well, the breeze is filling into the racecourse. These boats are starting to sail around, and the breeze that we're getting is not the typical sea breeze direction. It's actually going to mean a downwind start. So they've got their downwind sails furled and ready to go, but they are manoeuvring with the J1s. They're ready to make those tight racing maneuvers in the start line area.
Yeah, well, the J1s, they allow you to do a couple of things, because as the boats move so slowly, you don't have a lot of flow of water over your rudders, which basically means you can't steer the boat. So you need to be able to use the J1 on the front end, as sometimes you hold onto that sail and use it to pull the bow down, so it actually helps you turn and manoeuvre the boat as you sort of lose less and less control of the rudders.
Well, with the spectators out on the water, it was quite confusing for the sailors. There's a lot of traffic out on the water to see exactly where the start line is. And with these downwind starts, it is very, very critical you pick just the right angle. There is the breeze flowing over the course on the virtual eye graphic. That will be the first mark that they're going to reach to on the left-hand side. And as that breeze comes off the land, funneling out of the river and over the mountains, there is going to be some gusts and some shifts to play for.
Yeah, absolutely, and there'll be a big geographical effect here. You can see the start line there, just coming off the back of the start boat, and Dongfeng just getting their bow up on the edge of that start line. If there's a few minutes away, you'd be quite happy to be there.
Now, the interesting thing for me on that image was which way the current was going, because we looked at the committee boat there. It wasn't pointing into the breeze, it was being pulled with the current. Canute, you're on the water. How much tide is there? Well, Canute, we're going to come back to you in just a moment. Dongfeng race team, it must be quite light near the start line there, because they are hovering really quite slow. And with under 2 minutes to go, I'd be getting a little bit nervous at this point that I don't have full boat speed yet.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see Charles really working the wheels there. You know, he's going from lock to lock. He's basically just trying to get a feel for the. See the code 0 coming out there? He's basically almost dead in the water. He needs a 0 to start getting moving, get some pace on him. And as you look here, the current is actually coming from the right hand side to left hand sides of your screen, so that's going to push you down on the start line. So you'll see the boat sort of start getting going, hold into the breeze, and then push their bows down as they head towards the start line.
Well, the start line's on the left-hand side of your picture between the race control boat with the flags and the white and the blue buoy. Dongfeng race team just above it. And all the boats here, they're almost sort of hovering in the tide, aren't they? They're just sort of standing there a little bit static, trying to use the tide and the breeze just to hold that position. But there is the charge starting to happen from the back. Team Brunel a little bit slow. In front of them, Team SCA, Sam Davies starting to make her boat down towards the line. On top of them, Alvi Medica just holding off. This last few seconds, the time on distance is going to be crucial. Big bunch at the top. Dongfeng race team holding up double Olympic medalist Ian Walker, pushing them away from the line and holding Maffrey out. Team SCA at the moment, they've got a clear angle for this start line. Team Brunel just starting to get their bow down. You'll start to see the boats turning and then the tide kicking in as it pulls them back down to the bottom of your picture. This could be a nice start here for Team SCA.
Yeah, 30 seconds to go. It's all about, they're all on starboard at the moment. Very important here as the boats come down. Some of them may actually have to jibe. You could see Abu Dhabi trying to jibe there. It's going to be quite tricky.
A very crowded start line area here in Itajai, but it's Team SCA closest to the line, but the whole fleet is just angling for that first gust to get underway. Every single boat struggling to find their boat speed. There's the start gun go. Team SCA closest to the line, but they're down on speed. Team Brunel jibe on top of them, catch the wind in their sails. If they can just get that code 0 over and set, they are going to be on to an early lead.
Yeah, well, they've actually got on the wrong side of the forestay at the moment, so they're trying to get that to blow through around the front. That could be a bit painful for them. So if SCA can get rolling here and get away, clear their air, they're going to look pretty good there. They're covering Dongfeng and Abu Dhabi, all about clear air here. There's a big wind vacuum behind them.
That was a wind shift, and it just caught them completely unawares. Team Brunel having a little bit of a problem. Canute, you're on the water. Change in wind direction?
No, I think the wind is more dying than changing, but it's a lot less pressure. Okay. It looks like it's more wind close to the pin end, so I mean, obviously SCA got away with a good start there, and then Brunel had a terrible furl, but it looks a bit sketchy close to the committee boat on the breeze, but it's clearly less wind now. It just dropped basically just before the start.
An aggressive move by Dongfeng race team at the start, holding up Mafre and Abu Dhabi.
Well, I mean, that was going for a local little gain there, but the big picture, I don't think that was the right thing. And Brunel and Albimedica have pretty good pressure where we are. We are just with Albimedica and Brunel, and they're doing well. They have good pressure, good speed. The thing is, there's not a lot of speed and wind in front of them, so you kind of have to sail in what you have here, and across the whole water is difficult to say. But it is a change of direction. I see that now compared to what Bill O'Hara and the race committee was putting out, because with this direction, Abu Dhabi is almost laying the first mark, and that's not ideal.
Well, we can see the mismatch of conditions there. Light airs but big seas. But out in the lead at the moment, the only team to have won 2 import races, it's Team SCA.
Absolutely, happy to be watching this. You can see the crew coming forward there onto the bow. As the conditions get lighter, you want to move all your weight forward and try and reduce the wetted surface area. And really tricky conditions out there because you're trying to sail into the waves. You've got very little lack of wind, and you can see all the luffs of the sails. The sails are panting and pumping away, so it's very tricky to find a nice mode to keep the boats going. There's going to be a lot of communication between the helmsman and the trimmers here.
And every single time that the wave set just lifts the bow out of the water and it slaps back down, that's a loss of speed.
It is. It's just like if you imagine an aeroplane wing and all of a sudden it just loses its lift, the plane's going to drop out of the sky. So every time these things bump and they stop, they slow down. It's like hitting a brick wall, and then they have to establish the flow over the foils and get going again. So it's all tricky stuff out there.
And this is quite a new factor for the import racing. It's a real ocean swell coming in. We're quite exposed here on the eastern coast, and it's not something that we've had to deal with in the import races before.
No, we're sort of in inner harbours and flatter waters where there's not enough fetch to actually build the waves up. So what we're seeing here is could be from a weather system that's many miles away from us, almost thousands of miles.
Well, Team SCA out in the lead, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to the leeward of them, and as Knut was alluding to earlier, they're almost on the lay line for the first gate. So it could be a real pressure tactical decision that needs to be made on Team SCA. How do you turn that lead into a commanding position where you can lock Abu Dhabi Racing down?
Well, this all comes down to pressure. Basically, if Team SCA get pressure, they'll put the bow down and try and push down onto the other boats' lines and stay between them and the next mark. If the breeze gets lighter, then they all get shifted up and they could be jibing. And I think Knut's saying that the breeze is really dropping. It'll be interesting to see what they're seeing down on the water there in relation to these big black clouds that we're seeing out on the horizon. That's sucking the wind off the land into those clouds at the moment. So that's basically driving all the wind on the race course.
Well, Knut, I mean, how does that horizon look to you? It looks pretty dark from up here.
Yeah, it is pretty dark, but what do you think, Nico? Is it moving away from us?
Yeah, I think it is, but I agree with Richard that it could be the only show in town in terms of sucking the breeze out to it. But you can see here with Abu Dhabi, they are just trying to survive in clear air, and Mafre's going to be obviously a long way behind here because they're getting bad air off several boats. So everyone's just trying to keep their own lane and just survive to the next mark.
We're next to Albimedica here, and it's interesting seeing Charlie Enright. He's driving, he's lifting his shoulder, he's holding the wheel just with the fingertips. He's just so scared of losing the little pressure he has, because if you lose the pressure here, if you lose the speed, most of the wind speed you have is generated by yourself, by the boat. So you need to have that speed in the boat, because if not, you're going to start from zero to build it again.
And this is going to be 3 laps, this import race, so it's going to be pretty challenging. And if it does start to go a little bit light, as we are starting to see on some of these pictures, we're only halfway down the first leg of 6 legs. Now, interesting, we've had a little bit of a change in the breeze, and there you can see by the overhead animation the breeze just starting to track a little bit right. Team SCA now getting pushed down onto a far better angle to that gate. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to leeward of them, momentarily taking the lead, but interesting to note, they don't look like they're pointing straight at the mark. They're taking that angle down now while they can, maybe a little bit fearful that the breeze is going to change back again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in all these conditions, what you want to do is when you've got pressure, you want to take that pressure down, because as Knut was explaining there, as you lose the pressure, you want to be able to come back up, and it's all about what's called apparent wind angle sailing. The apparent wind is basically all the wind you generate as the boat goes through the water, and what they're doing out here right now is the finest form of the art of apparent wind sailing. this is what it's all about, the whole race today, about just don't lose that apparent wind angle.
And we make a lot of fuss about the skippers and the talent of the helmsmen, but really in conditions like this, it's a trimmer's race, isn't it?
Well, it's a team approach. It's just all that relationship between your main sheet trimmer and your head sail trimmers there, just bringing feeding the information back in. The other thing that'll be getting played a lot out there today is the keel. Heel angle will be critical for feel. So as you heel the boats a little bit more, it tends to, you lose a little bit of stability, but you get that in feel on the helm. And sometimes having that little bit more feel allows you just to keep the boat on edge that much more. So they'll be working the keel back and forth very slightly the whole time.
How much range on the keel will we expect in this light wind? 5 degrees, 10 degrees over?
Oh yeah, I'm guessing, looking at the heel angles there, I mean, at times they might even have it to leeward, but you maybe 5 to 10 degrees, 15 in a puff, but it'll be moving up and down the whole time.
And that maybe seems a little bit unconventional if you're not used with swinging keels and how you would imagine that they're used. You'd think they're just used for heavy breeze, but in the light stuff where they can make a difference, is there sort of agreement between the fleet as to the best angle, or is it one of those things that people are still experimenting with?
Oh, I think it's something that's very much an understanding for the feeling of the boat. You learn to know at what different heel angles the boat performs best at, and that's very much up to the helmsman at the time. It's in the fingertips. But I mean, you can also, you can use these keels to help you turn the boat. You can do roll tacks with them and roll jibes. So you can use it to your advantage in a big way, but of course you also can't use it to pump the boat forward. So there's rules about that.
And speaking about the keels, I mean, these swinging keels, they're moved over from one side to the other with this tremendous weight on the end of it by hydraulic engines, and down below on the boat they've got the engine running for these import races all the time, haven't they, ready to move that keel if they need to.
Yeah, they have. Just looking at Caroline here, she's really dialed in there with there she goes, she's just going for the keel there, so I can tell where her hand is. She's putting another couple of degrees of keel in. That means they've got a little bit more breeze coming on the boat. Yeah, but there's basically 2 enormous rams downstairs, and they're driven by a PTO pump, it's called, but it's basically a pump that sits on the front of the main engine and pushes the oil around on command. So there's plenty going on inside the boat, that's for sure.
Well, Canute are on the water. We're just wondering, they're approaching this at first gate, these leeward marks. Which one is the one that we're going to see the boats go round?
No, I think they will go down the one that is to leeward. So that means that they will be the right mark when they're looking to them, because they are more sure to lay that one. They can go faster to that mark. They can crank off a few degrees and make it. If they try to go the other one, they may not even lay it. They will have to tack, which is slower, isn't it, Nico? Attack is much slower than the jibe here.
Yeah, for sure attack's slower, but I kind of like the look. I think SCA may actually come to the left-hand mark facing downwind. There looks to me to be better pressure out this side, so they may come around tack and go back up, and maybe Abu Dhabi. So we actually could see a split here, so we'll end up seeing just what the penalty is for the tack versus Abu Dhabi jibing.
No doubt about it now. It's very clear that SCA is aiming to that left mark, because they should have been bearing away more now by where they are now, and Abu Dhabi clearly the other mark. So this is clearly a split already in the fleet.
For gate 1 here in Itajai, Team SCA narrowly reached the gate before Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and we have a split. Each team deciding to go around a different mark and start leg 2 on opposite sides of the course.
This is a big manoeuvre here. There's a lot going on. Team SCA got to get round through the eye of the wind there and get it rolling again. You see Ian rolling the boat round. It's a quicker deployment there. This is going to be quite interesting to see how it goes. And looks like Nico's right though. Good pressure, and you can see the jib setting straight away there on SCA, and quite a powerful position up to windward there if they're in the pressure.
Dongfeng race team, Charles Caudrelia, the Frenchman, 40 years old, takes his team around the same windward mark of Team SCA. And you've got to say, as you look at those images, Team SCA, they look good on that windward position.
Yeah, they do. They looks like it's all about pressure out there. I mean, really, you can talk about wind shifts and everything else, but at the end of the day, on a day like this, you just got to stay in the pressure and find your way to the next puff, because without the wind, you can't go anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're lifted, you're parked. So this is what it's all about out there, non-stop.
Bower Becking takes Team Brunel round the bottom mark. A little bit of an early furl on their code 0. It was a little bit quick to get away. You can see how much slower the boat is, but that's how rapidly they can deploy it when they need to. Straight out, filling, and now the boat's on that windward track. Charlie Enright and Alvi Medica, the young American team, coming round towards the back, just ahead of them. Maffrey about to come into picture. There, that you can see how close these two teams are. Now, this is going to be challenging here for Charlie Enright, because Maffrey are about to go into attack, and the rules could get very interesting.
Yes, don't go in there. He's going to have to follow him around, otherwise he'll get himself in a bit of trouble.
But Maffrey are not going to be allowed to tack straight in front of them. It's the one rule that's really concrete. If you tack, you pretty much lose all your rights. So
exactly.
With Alvi Medica just getting their bow, just inside there, it was a bit of a brave move. They just managed to get round, and now Maffrey forced to let Charlie Enright and the American team in.
Yeah, nice move by Charlie. He obviously he had an overlap there, and he was able to get in there nice and clean. And so critical manoeuvre him to get down and get speed rolling here, but he's sort of controlling Maffrey at the same time. So you can see there he's got the helm right over. The boy's working hard to get that back out. It'll be interesting to see what's going on a little bit further up in the racetrack here. Here we go. Bit of a lineup.
So Team SEA leading these boats on the Windward track. That's the right-hand side of the course if you were looking upwind. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing on the leeward side. So, but basically everyone deciding that windward mark was better to go round. But as we've seen before, Abu Dhabi sometimes do things a little bit differently, and it works out well for them.
He's not afraid to think outside the box, Ian. But the danger he's in here at the moment is if these boats to weather him start advancing any further, he's going to end up in their bad air, and you're going to have three boats rolling over the top of you. So I think what you'll see him doing, it looks like he's sailing a little bit more on the wind, is he's going to try and close his gauge coming up there, because it's quite a dangerous position to be in, especially when you're reaching. These boats aren't really on the wind here, they're actually laying through. It's a bit more of a reach.
If Team SEA just advance a little bit and start slowing Abu Dhabi around, they're going to lose Team SEA, they're going to lose Dongfeng, they're going to use everyone's going to start going past them, so it could be quite painful. Canute, from where you are on the water, does it look like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing have played this one right, or are they just waiting to die?
It's a little bit difficult from our place because we are just behind Maffrey, but it feels like a bit more pressure to weather, Nico.
Yeah, there is pressure to weather, but Abu Dhabi, they didn't have a choice on that run. That was the only mark they could go to, but certainly if they get some bad air off the guys to windward on, they're going to need an oxygen mask before the next mark.
and I think that we're just discussing what the race management will do, but I'm pretty confident they will now move the next mark again after this. They will move that because obviously this is a huge wind shift, and we will see them rounding the same marks as close to the start line, and then probably we'll have a new mark on the next leg.
Well, you have to hand it to Bill O'Hara and his team, because I didn't think we were going to get racing in today this quickly, but he's obviously got tapped into the right place. He knows exactly what this breeze is going to do, and a little adjustment, as Canute was alluding to there, with the course, and we are back on for a perfectly straightened up course. Great racing, and we're just coming up to completing the first lap. Team SCA out in the lead to windward of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Behind them, Dongfeng Race Team, Team Brunel, Alvi Medica, and then Maffrey. Low speeds, as we can see there on the screen, almost under 5 knots, so it's getting a bit light.
Yeah, the breeze is dropping for sure, and you can see the boat starting to level out. They're really starting to flatten out there. Looks like they might be getting a little bit lifted there as well. Looks like the sheets are getting eased out, so but definitely looking light across the water. Darker patch just in front of SCA at the moment. That might be the last little puff for a while.
And as we were saying before about these boats, they generate their own wind. The faster you're moving, the faster you meet the wind coming towards you, and it just feels a little bit stronger. And if the wind starts going a little bit to the right, and they have got to bear away to reach the top mark, they're going to lose that apparent wind effect, aren't they? They're going to stick in the water.
Yeah, exactly. And what makes it even trickier out there today is you're getting all these strange waves coming around, which are disturbing the boat. You know, these ones are coming from behind, so you get this little bit of a surge which pulls the wind angle forward on the sails, and then the boat will slow down again. And then so it's just for the helmsman, you're just living on the edge the whole time. You can see Caroline there, she's doing a great job. She's pretty handy at this.
Well, Carolyn Brower taking the helm for the import race yet again for the Team SEA. Just behind her, Torben Grail, the 54-year-old Brazilian. He's got 5 Olympic medals. So it's somebody that shares with people like Ben Ainsley the most Olympic medals ever won. He was on board the Volvo Ocean Racer in 2005, 2006, and Ericsson 4, where he won the race. So the guests on board, they're not really allowed to help, but I'm sure he's kind of almost sitting on his hands, desperate to try and get involved, because someone like that, they really know exactly what to do.
Yeah,
What happens if the wind disappears on this leg here, Richard? I mean, can Torben really help them out in this situation or not?
I don't know, it's a bit of a disadvantage. He's got so many gold medals that he's actually weighing the back of the boat down, so it's a bit rough having him out there today, but no, he can't help out at all. Pretty tough time for the race committee, because they may move the course and then the wind changes yet again. Obviously there's some time limits, and also Bill has to be thinking through what are the feasible racing conditions, what is a fair point to actually say, okay, that's enough, guys. So he can actually put up a change of course or a shortened course. So if he puts the shortened course flags up, that means that the race will be finished at the next mark. They've got a race to complete the race to the next mark, or he may change the angle. It's not an easy day for Bill, that's for sure.
And not an easy day for the sailors. How do you sort of factor in that uncertainty into your race plan? Do you just try and sort of push it out, or is there something you can do about that?
Exactly the same as Nico said before. You just got to stay dynamic out there. You've got to be ready and willing to take on anything. On a day like today, you've got to be willing to sail downwind 1 minute and upwind the next. It's you really have to use this incredible Weddell model, which is take it as it comes.
Well, we're about halfway through leg 3 out of 6 legs. We've had a rather big wind shifts, and the speeds of the boats are just starting to come back up. Canute, looks like the breeze maybe getting a little better.
Yeah, there is a little more breeze there closer to land, clearly. And a lot more breeze on the first 3 boats than what we saw on Mapfre and Alvimedica. So you're sailing up now, and if I understand Bill O'Hara right, I just heard on the radio, but he was talking about the new mark at 010, which is actually an upwind leg, but I can't see the mark yet, so we're just looking out for the mark here. We're a little bit far away from it yet, so we'll speak to the race management right away.
Well, the image that we're seeing at the moment, Canute, is Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing with their Code 0 fully strapped in. So as far as Ian Walker and his team are concerned, they're trying to make this boat go upwind.
Oh yeah, he's hard on the wind. Usually a good giveaway is where his leeward daggerboard is, because if that's down, it's still up actually, which is interesting. So, but they really want to track up when you'll see those going down. Maybe in the lighter conditions, the guys sort of hold off from getting that down there. But
and there you can see from the virtual eye, in fact, they're no longer pointing towards gate 2. They were managing to make that very easily, but now it's just a little bit of a struggle. So it might just be a slightly local shift, just something that just sort of rolls on, then rolls past the boat, or it could be something more permanent.
I think probably as these clouds that we've been talking about offshore are moving away, it's having less of a, that means basically the sucking effect is moving further and further away from our race course, which is fixed, and then you're just getting a few sort of miracle puffs that are still coming to sneak off the land here.
Well, the speeds of the boats are still good. We can just see Team SEA there. They were up at around about 7-6 knots. Dongfeng race team currently lying in 3rd place. They've got their Code 0 a little bit more ease. Now that is the benefit of being on that slightly windward track around that bottom mark. They took the windward track along with everybody else apart from Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. And as we can see, a difference in trim.
Yeah, there's a little bit more eased out there as Ian they're in full on the wind mode, so you can see the travellers are right up and everything's sheeted on hard, so they're trying to work their way up on the line, and this is where you can turn your weather position into a little bit of advantage and just sail a little bit more powerful, a little bit fuller, just the same as those aeroplane wings. When you come into land, the flaps come down, the wings get bigger, more lift. You're doing everything you can out there to generate as much power as possible.
Well, Abu Dhabi is still in this fight. They're a little bit lower, but they've got good pace. They're up at around about 6 knots. Team SEA a little bit slower, but we saw a split at the bottom of the course last time. We might yet again see a split. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing might be, again, their buoy might be just dictated to them. Canute, are we going to see another split at this next gate?
I don't think so, because the new marks that Bill O'Hara has put in the water are basically at the direction 010, which is straight north. So that means the next leg is an upwind leg. And it will be a big loss for Abu Dhabi to go for that left mark, because that's much further to leeward, and I think it's clearly much more advantageous to go to the white mark, because that's the weather of these 2 marks, and then you avoid doing a jibe upwind, which you really don't want to do. That's no advantage at all.
Well, we're seeing an absolute agony of a wind drop at the moment, Canute. Is that bubble that Team SEA and Abu Dhabi in, is that extending over the whole course, or is it just local to them?
No, I think they're sailing in. What do you think, Nico? That there is a bubble around the start line here. It looks very light on the marks.
Yeah, it looks really div. I didn't even see this last gust that the team's got to even get to this mark. It looks really light, and it looks like it's shut down over towards where the next mark is. But I think we're going to see these guys tack fairly soon and start trying to head just in the general direction of the mark.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team SEA neck and neck as they get round to the next gate mark and start making their way down to complete lap 2 out of 3 laps. A long and grueling light wind import race here in Itajai.
There goes Abu Dhabi just doing the jibe around the leeward mark. Dongfeng, interesting enough, going, maybe they couldn't get up as well. SCA are going to have to be a little bit careful here when and how they time the attack, because that's going to be an expensive manoeuvre to get around through the eye of the wind. Here they go and get moving again, get the boat rolling. So this is where you'll see this roll tack. They'll use the keel to try and get the boat moving again. And I'm suspecting current there as well. That could come into play. They're definitely going to be moving from right to left, and maybe a little bit less now as we get towards the top of the tide, but it's hopefully they end up in a pretty strong weather position here, but still awful lot to play for. I mean, you couldn't say who's going to come out of this and look good.
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Of course, as the wind gets lighter, the tide gets stronger. Now at the top of your course, you can see where the new position for gate 3 is, the next mark of the course. Team SEA, they sailed wide round that bottom mark, but looking at the virtual eye at the moment, that bottom mark was a little bit closer to that top gate, so maybe they haven't lost too much, and yet again they're still with that windward position, so if they can just get these boats moving. Dongfeng race team rounding on the inside of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, both teams just struggling to get moving.
Yeah, no, you can just see the jib on Abu Dhabi just flapping away there, and really tough position for Charlie to be on Dongfeng, because he can't afford to fall down into Abu Dhabi's bad air there, because it's going to be a long, long way down for him. So I suppose the good thing with SEA's position at the moment is they're not being controlled by any other boats. So as far as moding the boat, how they want to sail it, they can sail it how they want. They're not going to be predicted to by somebody else.
Bao Becking, the Volvo veteran, brings Team Brunel around the mark in 4th place, and he's also taking that windward position out of this gate. Behind him, Charlie Enright and Alvi Medica still in front of Mafre, but these two boats in last position compared to the pack, they haven't yet made the inroads, have they? And if this wind goes light and they get stuck at this bottom mark, it's going to be very painful for them.
Oh yeah, well I mean it's pretty painful in general for everybody out there, I think, because these conditions are so frustrating. You look famous one minute and then you're out the back door the next, so you just got to play your odds and minimise the risk.
Well, Canute, we're seeing some very, very challenging conditions out on the water. Where's the next breeze going to come from?
Oh, that's a good question. I see Torben Grail there on the back of SEA. He's a guest. He's not allowed to talk to the sailors. So he's kind of walking around there, looking around, and he's in his race mode. You can see him as a sort of spinning around there with his arms tied on the back, and he's looking around the race course. Honestly, we cannot see any breeze here. We cannot see any patches to weather anywhere. It looks even more glossy to weather. So I think it's going to be just a matter of just keeping your apparent wind speed and keeping the speed in the boat. Obviously, SEA looks in a very good place there because they're not even laying the gate, so they're very straight upwind, and Brunel must have made a good gain on their maneuver. I was a bit surprised by Abu Dhabi and Dongfeng jibing. Me and Nico spoke about that, and we kind of concluded that they were afraid of going to weather because there was so little wind around that start line area, so better to jibe and get back out in the breeze.
Well, we can just see Mafre, the Spanish team, they're in last place at the moment, but they've rounded that leeward mark rather tight. Alvi Medica, who led them around the bottom gate, elected to go a little bit wider. So these two boats still locked into a bit of a battle, but as you can see the Code Zero coming out and almost struggling to fill there. The breeze really is light.
Oh, it's just so tough. You see, I was just watching there, and you can feel the helmsman. The bow goes up and lands, bang, and the boat stops, and that's going to take him a minute, 2-3 minutes to get the boat rolling again, to reattach flow of air over the sails and the foils. It's pretty tricky out there. You can see Bow looking over his shoulder, just having a bit of a think about where's it going to come from next. There's not too many telltale signs out there at the moment of where the next breeze is going to come from.
Well, there is the layout of the race course at the moment. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing vying for the lead with Team SEA, but Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to the leeward side. So not really in the commanding position. Barely a third of this leg done on the way up to the top. They are pointing at the mark at the moment, so maybe this breeze has started to settle a little bit and they are finding an early ley line, but we'll have to wait and see if that breeze holds. And we always talk about the breeze in a sort of two-dimensional sense. It's coming from the left, it's coming from the right, but of course we can't really see the breeze that the sails are getting. It's above the water. The mast height on this boat is 30 meters, so you're actually asking a sailor to try and decide what the breeze is doing way above their heads.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see some telltale signs on the water on a day like today. It's I mean, we say sometimes they have these little telltales on the sails that are called woolies, and quite often you hear the trimmers say that even they're confused. They don't know where the wind's coming from. So and then normally they tell you what's going on. So she's a tricky old day out there, that's for sure.
And as we can see Team Brunel here in your screens, it just goes to show how much swell we are getting on this course. Light winds and big swell making it quite difficult for the sailors. You've got to trim your boat quite differently when you've got swell to punch through. You're not almost so concerned with height, you're just trying to get any power just to punch your way through the waves.
Just keep it rumbling. I mean, you're generally in light airs, you'll see all these big sailors trying to be like ballerinas. You don't move around the boat, everybody sits still, you don't make any movement so that you can just get anything and everything that comes through the boat. And then when you've got a heaving sea wave throwing the boat up and down and pushing the sails in and out against the rig, it is really tricky stuff. But it's quite good for the public to get to see this, because you get these conditions all around the world. You just don't see it really live. So, it's it can be like this for a week out there sometimes.
Well, from the helicopter shot at the moment, you can just see behind the boats, behind Team Brunel and to leeward of Mafre, a slightly darker patch on the water. Now that could just be a little bit of current coming into play with the breeze and making it look a little stronger than it is. But there are patches of breeze out there. Alvi Medica and Mafre still neck and neck with Alvi Medica in that windward position. And you can see just how much that sea snake, that swell rolling onto the boat, is playing with their code zero. Every single time the boat rolls over, the luff of the code zero just loses the breeze. Every time it loses it, you've got to retrim, you've got to reattach the float.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a soft aeroplane wing there, so every time it loses its aerofoil shape, it's not doing anything, it's just a big break. So you've got to keep moving the sheet the whole time. That's looking like pretty hard work out there. Interesting enough, we've got young William on Mafre. His father's nickname is Gizmo, and I sailed around the world with him, and he had a fantastic philosophy for sailing in light airs. He said, if you point where there's no wind, by the time you get there will be some.
Well, look at this at the moment on the top of your screen. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing starting to roll over the top of Team SEA. So as we were watching the images a moment ago with Alvi Medica and Mafre, maybe those boats at the front of the fleet are starting to see a little bit of a different breeze and they're starting to make use of it. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing up at around about 5.5 knots, and looks like the tide's starting to turn in their favour.
Yeah, it's just all about sniffing out that next little puff there. I think we could see this change another 2 or 3 times before we get to the next gate. Be interesting to see if Canute's got any input from the race committee of what their next move's going to be, because obviously time is rolling by out there.
Well, this breeze on the water certainly does look light, but the boats are still moving. 5 knots of boat speed is nothing to scoff at in what almost appears like less than 2 knots of wind. There's obviously a little bit of breeze still in the rigs pushing them forward, and it's so frustrating when you're trying to make a tactical decision in this situation, because you see a patch of breeze on the water, you see a position that you want to be in, but you just can't move yourself from where you're stuck to where you want to be. You've almost made your decision almost off the start line, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the bow. I mean, that's super light conditions. You've got the whole crew sitting on the front there. I hope they're talking about sailing.
Well, no, let's just enlighten us as to what's going on down below, because we talked about the keel swinging over. We've got all the sails towards the front on the bow. We've got all the crew up there, but down below, a little bit of movement with gear, trying to get the right heel, the right trim.
Yeah, well, basically everything downstairs will be in the front of the boat. Everything that they're allowed to move is stacked up against the forward bulkhead, which would be about 3 or 4 metres in front of the daggerboard as you look at it there. I mean, it's just super, super light. It's super tricky out there.
And as you say, everything forward, meaning only 3 crew that I can see at the moment towards the back of the boat. Carolyn Brower on the helm, Sam Davies trimming the main, a few guests at the back, but Everybody else, if you're not needed right now, get right the way to the front of the boat, lie down, get out of the breeze. It's that kind of sailing where you just make one small trip along the boat, you just shake the rig a little bit, the skipper screams at you, you lose half a boat length, and that's almost it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really is. It's quite undescribable to just how much these small changes can affect the way that the boat's performing. And you see Sam there, she's just easing the runners off a little bit, so they're trying to generate as much shape as you possibly can in all the sails, and as you ease the runners off, it's like a big tensioner. It allows the front of the sail to sag a little bit, which makes everything a bit fuller and a bit bigger. Well, it looks like Abu Dhabi are sneaking ahead there at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing are looking like they've just started to make those gains. They're now maybe 3 boat lengths ahead of Team SCA, so they're doing something right. No plans from the race management team to shorten the race at the moment, so we are about to conclude lap 2 before we then start getting one more lap to go. So this has been quite a long race, and we've got more racing to go. If you're a sailor on board right now, would you be wanting them to shorten it, or are you just hoping that the breeze starts coming in?
Depends what position you're in. If you're leading, you'd be happy from the finish right now. But no, I think, I mean, obviously it's pretty tricky sailing conditions out there, and everyone wants to have a good and fair yacht race, so probably, I don't know, it's a mix. I mean, once it becomes ridiculous and there's no wind, then you should really just call it. But at the moment, they're still moving along. But you can see here, as this shot comes in, you can see this patch of wind, this darker patch in the water, and as you look out to the other side of the boats, it's very, very shiny. There's Torben.
There in the middle of your screens, Torben Grail, the Brazilian Olympic sailor. He's won the Volvo Ocean Race on board Ericsson 4 2008-09, so a very accomplished sailor. And I believe he arrived here sort of last minute. He's pretty in demand, this guy. He's one of those people that everybody wants to have him on their boat. Everybody wants to have him at their yacht club. He's quite renowned in these parts.
Absolutely. I mean, Torben he has a lot of foundations that he works with helping disadvantaged people and the Grail Foundation, and he puts it, and of course he's very identifiable. He's one of the most successful sportsmen ever to come out of Brazil.
Well, as this light breeze really starts to take effect on these boats, Canute, you're on the water. A little bit of a wind shift?
Well, we see some more breeze, or at least it's darker offshore. And sort of the guess we had was that we were going to see a right shift out there when that breeze came in, but when we finally got there wasn't much pressure. And another big sportsman, just so you know, on Abu Dhabi is obviously the big football player Cafu from Brazil, who, as far as I know, he has been in 3 World Cup finals and also been a captain on the Brazilian football team. It was a bit of a show when he arrived at the dock. I can tell you he is a popular man in Brazil.
Well, from the virtual eye, you can see there is the wind shift that's coming down the fleet. Every single boat, their track bent right round to the right. Now, if you're on the right-hand side of a right-going shift, you gain. If you're on the left, you lose. And Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they've definitely gained. They were on the right. It might have been a little bit of trimming. It might have been a little bit of speed, but certainly that shift has gone their way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those at home, it's probably a bit confusing, but as the wind shifts over the right, it's not actually your speed. It's you'll come down, and then all of a sudden you've gone from being in front of someone to your bows pointing at their stern. So that it can easily change back the other way just as quickly. But you can see that in the tracks of the boats as it starts bending down towards the right. But the real advantage comes when you actually tack over, because once you tack over on that shift, then you find yourself directly to windward of your opposition, and that's where you get the payday, hopefully. But looking very, very light on Abu Dhabi there.
And I tell you what, having the guts to tack in this light winds, but not only light winds, but big swell as well. If you put in a tack and it wasn't the right thing to do, you're going to lose boat lengths.
No, brutal. I mean, you can't describe how expensive any manoeuvre is out there in these conditions. So you want to be pretty certain you need a tack before you tack. You're not going to be doing it on a whim. So when they do get a gust of wind, they'll be feeling what is the true heading of that, discuss it, and then tack.
Well, right behind double Olympic medalist Ian Walker is Cafu, the Brazilian footballer, won 2 World Cup finals. And I'm not too sure what his sailing career is like, but it's going pretty well today.
It's obviously off to a nice start if this is his first day out there.
And I just saw Ian Walker starting to take a little bit of a look behind him. He might be thinking about maybe now's the time to tack. He is getting a little near the ley line. There you can see on the virtual ice, that shift really has pushed them over to the right-hand side of the course. And if it holds now, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing will tack over, will cross in front of Team SCA, and will be leading this race.
Yeah, in this light air stuff, you need to push past your ley lines a fair bit. Like you need to be able to put a bit in the bank. So when you tack over, you're pretty certain about it, and you can roll over. But boy, oh boy, that looks pretty light there. I mean, the boat's hardly moving.
Just when Ian Walker wants to do a tack, it starts to look agonisingly light, but he's decided this is the right time to go, and here's a great opportunity to see just how much needs to be done to tack these boats in light airs. They furl up the code 0, the helm goes over, and also Ian Walker starting to adjust the keel down below through the eye of the wind, and now the crew have to haul out that massive code 0. No wind to help them pull that code 0 out.
A very tricky manoeuvre too, so you really need to use the keel and the roll of the boat. He's still in the eye of the wind there, and if you do this wrong, you can actually get blown back the other way. So
that has
it's
not gone to plan.
Tricky. And I think he's got away with it, but you can see that they're pretty much dead in the water, so they've got a huge speed build ahead of them. This could take 3-4 minutes to get the boat up to speed, maybe longer.
Yeah,
everyone's got to do it.
Absolutely, and if you were watching that at home, you might have been thinking, well, it took them an age to get. They had that code 0 furled for a long time, but you can see why. The tacking angle, the angle that they've got to go through from one tack to the other is massive. It takes them an awfully long time to get to the point where they can deploy that code 0, and it works. And now you can see how much speed they've lost.
Yeah, they've got to build that up. It's going to take an enormous amount of time to slowly to get that back up there. It looks like SCA have tacked as well, so going with them. There must be a big shift out there.
Well, Ian Walker with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing on top of Team SEA, who have also tacked over. Boat speeds very light, less than 2 knots. So it's pretty challenging sailing, trying to take this new lead that Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing have into the top mark. There you can see Sam Davies' boat, Team SEA, and that breeze is not helping them out.
No, it's not at all. I mean, massive speed build to go. Still there, you can see the boat sort of bobbing up and down in one spot there at the moment. So it's, again, you've got to ease the sails and sheet them on very slowly and just inch your way forward and slowly turn that into some apparent wind.
And on the back of Team SCA, Torben Grail, the Brazilian sailor, and Ian Walker to windward of him on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Ian Walker actually beat Torben in the 2000 Sydney Olympics, where Torben finished in the bronze position and Ian got silver. So maybe Torben sitting there, and if we were saying before that Torben was finding it difficult not to grab the wheel and, try and get involved with the sailing, seeing Ian Walker rolling over the top of him again, that's going to be difficult.
It'll be interesting. Torben spent plenty of time standing in the back of boats offering advice to helmsmen, so it'll be a real experience. His tongue's going to look like Swiss cheese when he gets in. I think he'll be biting it pretty hard. Interesting to see here though, SCA moving and Abu Dhabi looking like they're out of the breeze.
I mean, that just goes to show just how patchy these conditions are. You just get that little bit of a puff and it just starts to push you forward. And Ian Walker, it was looking, pretty much cemented that he was going to lead this fleet into the top mark, but he's tacked over, hasn't been able to get the boat going, and Team SEA has just started to push their boat past. It's going their way at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all about staying in the pressure and finding something to work with. These are pretty borderline conditions out there at the moment for sailing. It's a tough old day
and difficult to stay calm and cool in these positions when it just comes down to these final meters.
Yeah, you can see them, the guys pulling the sails over to leeward side, so they're doing everything they can to get some leeward heel without having to push the keel too far to leeward, because you can see they've got both the dagger boards up at the moment, which is their sideways resistance. They're relying on the keel fin. Now what you'll probably see as they get a little bit more breeze is that the dagger board will go down, so it increases just the amount of boards or surface area in the water to lift you up.
And as they're trying to lean those boats over, it's not just about leaning the hull over, lifting one side out, trying to get a better position, but also trying to get the sails to work. And I'm wondering, as we're seeing this wind so light, Canute, from where you are on the water, is it just about finding the pressure at the moment?
Well, I think it's just about keeping the boat moving. And Nico, we were just watching Brunel rolling in their code 0 and going with the jib, which if you're not an offshore sailor, is not a very normal situation. Can you explain why they're doing that?
Well, normally we change the name of it when it gets this light. You end up calling it a drifter, and it's obviously used when literally in drifting conditions, and it's small and it can ease out a little bit easier in the lighter breeze. And you know, it's just an example of just how light it is out here, and really where these boats are positioned, they can't go and get any breeze. Where you get the breeze that comes down to you, and it's really difficult out here for them.
And there's not really much breeze to see, guys. On the marks, you asked us if we see anything. I'm looking and looking and trying to find something out there, but it really looks glossy all the way. Maybe a little patch offshore, but it's darker, but it doesn't seem like there's any wind in it. But it's also more difficult, I think, to sail on starboard tack than it was on port. Seems like the sail was banging more to the rig with the waves, so that also has a big effect.
Well, Team SEA at the moment, they're off towards the middle of the course. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing are now chasing their stern. And Canute, from where you are, I mean, it looks like these two boats are never going to get to the next gate. The wind's constantly against them.
It is. I mean, I think it's not so much the direction; it's more the wind speed. When the wind drops completely, I mean, you with these boats, you hardly go upwind. You know, you just go back and forth and back and forth. We saw when they tacked, Abu Dhabi looked like they were the same distance in front of SEA as they're now behind them. So I'm sure that when SEA tacks, she's not going to be that far ahead as now, because their angles of wind are huge. When there's no wind at all, and there's hardly any wind at all right now. And this is something you experience many times offshore. You know, like part of an offshore leg is no wind, but it's a tough one in an import race, Nico.
Yeah, it is, and everything's critical here at the moment. SEA do look like they've got a reasonable lead, but I actually don't think they could tack and cross Abu Dhabi at the moment. So it's going to be, they're probably the only boat, though. They're the fastest boat through the water at the moment, and they're the closest to the mark. So, it's really, really tricky here.
Well, the big question, Canute, if I can put you on the spot, where is the breeze going to fill in from? Abu Dhabi's side or Team SEA?
I think they're in the same stretch of water, really. It's not that much different. I'm just getting Jack Lloyd over here now, so we're going to have a little chat to him and come back to you, because I think the race management will give us an update, because they're struggling obviously right now.
Okay, thanks, Canute. Come back to us as soon as you get an update from race control. Team SEA and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing locked into a battle to close down the final 150 metres to the next gate. Both teams desperately trying to find some boat speed.
Yeah, well, this could well actually be a race to the finish. If the race committee decide to shorten course, this could well become the next mark. Is a good. See, looks like Stacey's on the front end. They're getting the J1 ready to go. So obviously they're starting to struggle with the codes here as well. And what ends up happening once you lose all the wind is you end up using this J1 as a flapping sail. So as the boat actually rocks from side to side, by it being forced by the waves, it actually pumps the boat forward. So. And the other thing is, well, they could be looking at attack here. Yeah, so they're going to attack, and they may have to go to the J1 to get going. So this attack is going to be tough.
And we saw the situation with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing only a few moments ago when they decided, the breeze is good, we're going to attack for this mark, and then they were left floundering. So a key moment for Team SEA as the breeze looks to be going a little bit more their way. All 11 of the crew involved in this big tack, this big change.
Yeah, big manoeuvre there,
forward.
Massive manoeuvre. Trying to get through the eye of the wind, you're sort of you're looking for some help from God at this point when you're tacking the boat. And you'll see it heel right over. You've got to get the bow down and around, and then you can deploy the code 0. You don't want to do it too early because you'll go back the other way. So you probably see it just starting to come out now.
They're almost stuck head to wind. They're almost those waves as they turn head to wind. You lose any power in the main whatsoever, and if a wave just comes in and hits you on the bow, you just stop dead and just so slowly through the eye of the wind. They're starting to get the code 0 out, but it's so important that code 0 fills on the right side. If it fills on the wrong side, they're going to get pushed back to head to wind, and then they're in real trouble.
Interesting, what you can actually do here as well is you can do a partial unfurl. So you can actually unfurl it sort of half, or just to the shrouds, which is basically where the mast is. And then it'll help you pump the boat, get going, and then you can unfurl and off you go. Abu Dhabi looking good.
Abu Dhabi looking very good. They've started to find a little bit of breeze, so maybe Team SEA are going to lose out. Now we're waiting to find out what the race management are going to do. Are they going to shorten it? The big question is, can they shorten it at this next gate? Can they finish them at the next gate, or is it too late for that now?
Well, I don't think it's ever too late, but it's going to be awfully tricky because some of the other boats are a long way behind, and it's interesting here because Ian's, he's looking pretty light. So basically what SEA got to do now is try and do what Ian's been doing for the last 6 minutes, is get going. So this is maybe here, like Nico said, that the that manoeuvre is so expensive that you can lose your whole lead in just one tack.
Well, and this light wind sailing is pretty challenging, and we talk always about the hardships of heavy breeze, tough offshore sailing. But when it's light like this, it really can tax the brain. And Ian Walker, he learned to sail on Chipstead Sailing Club, a small inland lake, and he's always said he enjoys these conditions. This light fingertip sailing where the smallest adjustment wins the day.
Yeah, there's definitely guys that that are brilliant in light airs, and they've got the patience for it. You just got to keep feeling your way through. It's really, and like Nico says, the instruments are useless. It's all about feeling where the wind's coming from on the side of your face.
Well, Dongfeng race team just going out of picture on the right hand side, almost in a position to threaten. To leeward of them, Team Brunel are also coming up, and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team SEA, they have the potential here to have their lead scuppered as Dongfeng race team and Team Brunel are coming in with what looks like a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, and that's again what this is all about. If they have to do a manoeuvre before the top mark, then they'll be in big trouble. If they can lay through and keep going, then they'll be fine. Classic example of using the half unfurled code 0 there in light airs is gives you a slightly smaller sail to manage. It just gets you going, and you just unfurl it once you get some forward motion.
Agonising sailing here for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing as they are only metres away from this gate mark, but they're just struggling to get round it and over the top. And as the wind gets light, the tide comes into effect, and they've got to make sure they do not get swept onto any of these marks.
No, that would be pretty heartbreaking to have got to this point, and the boats will move sideways in this lighter airs. They'll slip sideways before they go forward. So you want to make sure you got plenty of room on this corner, but I'm sure Ian he'll be pretty comfortable there. Here he goes.
I'm looking at the mark on the right hand side. It looks to me like the tide's running off from the left hand side of your screen at the moment down to the right hand side. Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they've played that positioning well, and they've managed to get over the top of the course with no real dramas. But of course, they've now got to get their way all the way to the bottom. Meanwhile, Team SEA, a sail change. They're going for the J1. Team Brunel, they've really closed up with their J1, so maybe Sam Davies and the rest of the team decided, well, you know what? That's a winning ticket.
Yeah, I was watching the numbers there. They were really struggling to get going after the last tack. So you'll see them fill the 0 up here and try and work with that code 1 to get going. Abu Dhabi and Brunel?
Yeah, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing coming downwind, Team Brunel going up, and the big problem here, Team Brunel going for attack and stopping dead. And it's not really like Ian Walker and his team have got much more manoeuvrability. These two boats are pretty close, and neither of them are going to want to get out of the way.
No, it's a bit hard to tell which is upwind and downwind out there at the moment. It's really tricky conditions for everybody. So there's obviously been a bit of a big wind shift there. I don't know, you see the bow's gone down massively on SCA, so I'm struggling to see. I wonder if they're actually lost their edge.
It's almost as if they're jibing out from Team SCA. Maybe they have had a penalty, maybe. We understand that they do have a penalty for that with Team Brunel. They got a little bit close, and in this light winds it is very easy. So it's a one-turn penalty. Knut, you're on the water. We're seeing Team SCA spinning.
Well, because they got the penalty. They were awarded the penalty, and Brunel was protesting them. We were watching it, and the umpire boat gave them the red flag, and they had to do the penalty, which is a very, very painful penalty, because in no wind, to spin around, and you also have to give away to the other boat. So right now, for example, they have to be careful to not create another situation with Brunel. But we also spoke to the race management, and my understanding is they are planning to shorten the last leg and bring it a bit closer. So that's their plan, as the wind has dropped that much.
Knut, if I can just come back to that penalty moment, because I was too wrapped up with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing squeezing their way around the top of the course. Was it pretty close for Team SCA, or was it one of those things that was they just drifted into the wrong position?
They were on port tack, and Brunel was on starboard as far as I could see, and we were looking at it. Nico saw it. Nico, could you see anything more closer?
No, that was the rules, but that was a really tough one, I think, on SCA. You've got to be able to even have speed and steerage to get out of the way of Brunel, and they were literally stopped in the water. A big right-hand shift. I think it was a fairly tough one on SCA.
Or Team SEA having to jibe to do their penalty. They need to do one more tack to finish off their turn, and if they can just get a little bit of speed out of that jibe, they might be able to find a little bit of pace and actually get back into the fight.
Yeah, and they've got, like Knut was saying earlier there, you have to stay clear of the other boats as well. So, you know, they're going to have to go a little way here, get clear of Abu Dhabi before they can complete the tack and complete the penalty.
Well, we just had it confirmed from race management that Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, the only boat to go round the top of the course, is indeed on their way to the finish. The race has been shortened. It was meant to be 3 laps. It's going to be 2 laps. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing starting their way down to the finish. And as we can see here, Dongfeng Race Team, we said that they might be a threat earlier on. They were starting to come into this windward area with a little bit of pace, a little bit of momentum, and in fact they look really nice to carry this angle right the way around the top of the course.
Yeah, it's just all about keeping moving. You know, if they can keep it rumbling, I mean, it's so light that they can't even use the whole sail. So that's pretty telling. When you look around there, we got boats pointing in all sorts of different directions with 2 different types of sails up. So it's pretty tough out there.
But a nice position here for Charles Cordrelier on Dongfeng Race Team. They weren't in a fantastic position. It almost looked like they were locked into 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th if they slipped up. And now they're potentially going to be in 2nd place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, today is a classic day where you just never give up, because you never know when you might get a chance, you might get a puff, and all of a sudden you're in it. You know, you're off, and you can have your own private little piece of gust of wind, and you're away. So, you know, you just can't you can't have a mental lapse. You've got to be in it to win. You know.
And as we saw before, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team SEA, when they were down the bottom of the course near that finishing area, they parked up, they stood still. So Dongfeng Race Team, Team Brunel, Team SEA, everyone could be catching up with Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
Yeah, I mean, SEA you can see them backing the jib there at the moment, trying to get the bow down. So they're completed their penalty now, and so now they'll be off to get around the top mark. So be interesting to see what happens with Brunel, because they might get them back.
Well, Brunel here, they're going to be coming into that top mark on starboard. Team SEA are going to be coming into it on port, so maybe the all-women team just being able to get ahead, but there's certainly a fight going to be on here for 3rd place. Dongfeng Race Team safely over the top of Team Brunel, and their bow just going round the last gate. They will be on their way to the finish, currently in 2nd place.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, Abu Dhabi have moved a very short distance since they went round the mark there. So again, if Charles can, the trick here is to not turn too far downwind. You've got to bring your apparent wind down with you. Make sure you've got something to work with, because if you just turn around and you go dead downwind, then you completely stop. So he'll be working hard to drag whatever he's got down with him, and just it's such fingertip stuff to hang on to it. SCA looking pretty stuck in the water there at the moment. Same with Brunel, you know, they're really struggling to find something to get going with.
And it's such a challenging style of sailing to stay cool in this position, because you get stuck in the water and it's agonizing. You're constantly double guessing every decision you've made. It's so difficult, and when you decide, you know what, we are on the wrong side of the course, we need to go over there, you just can't. Now, as we're seeing here, a bit of a cross coming up. Dongfeng Race Team coming down. They are on starboard tack. Team SEA coming into that mark on port. So Dongfeng Race Team, they've got right of way, but Team SEA, they're certainly not going to want to avoid make a big course change and lose all their hard-won speed.
No, not at all, but you certainly, they can put the bow. They'll have to work their way around the back of Dongfeng and just hope that by the time they cross, you know, that they've advanced forward enough that they don't have to go on the wind too hard to avoid them.
This looks like it could be quite close, because Dongfeng Race Team are doing exactly what Team SEA don't want them to do, which is pretty much stop dead. So if the breeze can just flick a little bit to the left-hand side, a little bit of pressure coming on, Team SEA will manage to go round the stern of Dongfeng Race Team without having to luff.
Yeah, they'll be pretty close, but this is actually going to be quite expensive for Dongfeng as well, because they're going to have all our bad air rolling over the top of them, so it's not necessarily something you want to do. But just looking at this, I mean, you've got Brunel have got a tack to do, so they've still got to do a manoeuvre and get going. SCA, you know, a little bit closer to the mark, but also with a tack to do. But quite interesting to see which mark they choose to go around here. Brunel might actually try and jibe around the other mark just so they don't stop.
On the tide at the moment, pushing Team SEA away from that mark, just dragging them back, dragging Team Brunel back. Dongfeng Race Team, they came round that windward mark looking great. They had a nice bit of momentum, and they're struggling really. So Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing Dongfeng race team on their way down to the finish. Not only has the race management team shortened the race, we've lost a lap, the third lap we were going to have, but they've also brought the finish line closer in. So this final leg of the race will be shorter than before. Knut, is there any breeze further down the track? What are we in for?
It's a good guess. I mean, it's very, very difficult to say because there isn't anything. We're all looking around. The sailors are looking around. Everyone is trying to. The biggest breeze we can see is under a helicopter, and there is nothing. It's a little darker now in the next city from Itajai over there. I mean, maybe it's going to fill in from the south. You know, it's possible, but not a lot of breeze. And Nico, can you see something?
No, I can't. And I think you will actually see Dongfeng in a minute or so here get a little bit of speed on it, and he's literally underneath the helicopter. So, you know, it's too hard to tell. You know, a second ago, Brunel, they couldn't have laid either mark, and now they're going to go to the right-hand mark here, I think, and probably go onto the code 0. They've actually got some breeze, so it's still anyone's race.
And as long as you can park up, you can actually win this race, even being last now. I mean, everything is up for grab, really. But it's interesting. I see Abu Dhabi just drop the jib and go for the code 0 again. So they must feel they have a little bit of pressure to sail in. And it's going to be interesting to see how Brunel is doing with their maneuver, because you set yourself up for the side of the race course now, and you can't choose again. You can't move from one side of the race course to the other. You have your destiny sorted out very early here now, so you have to be very smart about how you select, but how can you know? I can see a little bit of breeze there. I mean, the next city, Camburio, which is south of Itajai, it has clearly some darker waters just in front of the breeze.
There must definitely be a little bit of breeze coming out there. You see the code 0 coming out on SCA to try and get a rumbling and get around that mark. So I think they were obviously planning on following Brunel around that right-hand mark.
Well, they've obviously got enough breeze now to start making their way over the tide, and important to remember that the forecast for today was for more breeze later on. It was for thermal breeze to start building and start coming in, and if we're out on the water long enough, we should see that stronger breeze start coming on. I mean, it's not going to be heavy weather sailing, but there is going to be a steady breeze coming. So maybe if Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing can't quite close the distance down to the finish line, the breeze could fill in from a different side, and one or any of these teams could still overhaul them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's still a lot of golf left in this one, so they say.
And we talk about, the offshore legs and the one position. Charles Codrelio was always saying the one position he doesn't want to do is a bowman. On here, you don't want to be a tactician. There's the virtual eye image. Team Brunel round the top, followed by Team SEA. They're starting to chase Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but Dongfeng Race Team on the right-hand side of your screen, they found some lovely breeze, 4, maybe 5 knots of boat speed, and they are starting to overhaul Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
It'll be quite interesting to see who jibes first here between SCA and Brunel and starts to lead back, whether the girls are going to try and attack and go early. Looks to me like they're thinking about it. There's a few people coming back into the cockpit and loading winches, so can't be far off. They're obviously discussing it because you need a little bit of separation to be able to have a go at them. So you don't want to just follow Brunel. You probably want to jibe first here if you can. Yeah.
And of course you're trying to look over your shoulder to try and pick where the breeze is as well to jibe into. Mafre, the Spanish team, the team that we've seen such huge improvement with over the last 2 legs, they're coming in not quite in last position. Alvi Medica they've managed to put behind them, but they too are just struggling to lay that windward mark. The code 0 is out and it's just starting to set. So a little bit of speed, a little bit of momentum for that boat. They're going to get safely around the top.
Well, these guys have had a pretty big day because they only put the repair mast in the middle of the night last night. So they were off the dock pretty early this morning. It wasn't that clear at 8 o'clock last night whether they'd even be out there today. So all in all, pretty nice collective effort from those guys, shore team included. They've done a great job to get the boat back out there. I'm sure that the boatyard and everybody have been going through the night on that one.
And of course, very important to note about that mast repair that's been needing to be done. the only way that that mast repair was actually properly identified was with use of X-ray. The mast came out of the boat, goes into the boat shed, and it gets X-rayed in this enormous machine. And tiny little faults are found, and repairs are decided on, and they've had to fabricate something pretty quickly here in a local shop just to get it all working.
We're going to have to catch you up on that one. It's called NDT and it's tiny, but no, they NDT the rigs. It's non-destructive testing, so it's like same with your check for pregnant woman. So it goes through and they check all the composite structures, and they actually found it after the rig went back in. But it's been a big collective of designers and technicians that have been working on a solution here.
Well, Rob Greenhouse steering Mafre down to the bottom. They've elected to jibe right round the top of the course. Team SCA now jibing to the leeward side of them. Brunel now following suit. So all three boats starting to stack up. And maybe there's a little bit of a race between all three of them left to play out.
Oh, absolutely. It's all out there to be played for at the moment. This is far from over. One little puff could change everything.
And we can see on the bottom of your screen Andre Fonseca, the local Brazilian sailor. He hails from a city just 100 miles away from Itajai, so very much the local lad. He was very pleased to get into Brazil. And he's not going to be happy about finishing at the back of the fleet. He's going to be desperately working hard to get the best speed out of that boat.
Oh, absolutely. I don't be looking for a big result today in front of the home crowd.
Dongfeng Race Team, they've really taken control of the lead at the moment. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing in the middle of the course. Dongfeng Race Team out to the right-hand side if you're looking downwind. Now, as those two boats are split, one on one side, one onto the far right-hand side, a little bit of a change of breeze over the course will mean a big change in position. So, slightly dangerous for Dongfeng Race Team to be this far out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've our perspective is a virtual eye at the moment, so we can't actually see what really is happening on the water. But if they have a jibe to do, then Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing looking pretty good. If they get headed and lay through, then Dongfeng looking good. And we've got a full-on drag race lining up down to leeward here between Mafre, SCA, and Brunel.
Well, at the back of the fleet, Charlie Enright and the young American team, Alvi Medica, they are about to go around to the top of the course, and they were locked in a battle at the first gate with Mafre, managing to squeeze inside, and it looked like they were going to have a great race with the Spanish boat, but Mafre managing to sail clear, and now Alvi Medica paying the price for just slipping out of the breeze and struggling to hold on to the fleet.
Yeah, absolutely, but you look in the background there, you can see Abu Dhabi, and it's all still looking pretty light out there, so I mean, these guys could get a puff and come flying in for everyone. The boats are moving so slowly. You're talking 2 or 3 knots. If you get a gust of wind of 6 knots and you start doing 6 knots, then you're going twice as fast as the other boats. So all of a sudden you're back in the game very quickly.
Well, the breeze picture at the moment does seem to have improved. It does seem to be filled in, but there's the camera shot of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They still look pretty upright. They still look pretty flat in the water. And Canute, from where you are, is the breeze still the same, or is it starting to fill in from the top?
No, it's definitely wind filling in, and Alvi Medica are rounded probably with the most breeze of all. So it's something filling in from behind, and also it feels like it's filling in from weather. So more pressure where Alvi Medica is than Brunel is clearly now. What do you think, Nico?
Yeah, for sure. Like breeze definitely filling in from the top end of the course. And now you just want to you're going to have to start really trying to position with the other boats.
And definitely one of those last legs that can turn the whole scoreboard upside down. Huh?
Yeah, like Brunel, I'm sure that they thought they were in a very good position there, going around the top mark. And now they're possibly looking at almost at the tail end of the field.
With this new breeze that we're seeing, Canute, filling in from the behind and filling in from weather, could it be that much of a change that we see Alvi Medica get right back into this race?
Absolutely. I think Alvi Medica has already caught up quite a bit, but you have to remember this also depends a lot what happens further down, because look at Dongfeng now, they have a lot less breeze than what the guys have out here. So the most breeze we can see is just at the marks where they just rounded, and then it drops off. So if they're going to have to jibe their way down to the finish line again, this turns upside down again.
Charlie Enright, skipper of Alvi Medica, on the wheel, fingertips on the helm, just trying to get everything moving. Now let's take a look at what's happening at the front. Dongfeng Race Team still in the lead. It was around about 100 meters when we last checked in. Now it's 113. Now a big change in boat speeds. Dongfeng Race Team 3 knots maybe in the front. Alvi Medica 4, maybe 5 knots of boat speed. In fact, we're seeing 6, 7 as those gusts come in. So definitely breeze at the back. Will it feel its way through the racecourse?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you don't plan to be in the back of the fleet, so you can understand how much the pressure's just changing the game out there at the moment. Dongfeng looking very light there. If those guys have to jibe, then all of a sudden you'll see Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing looking very good. So Charlie will be hoping for a massive header and a good puff right about now as he looks down to see how he's doing with Ian.
And a nice confidence booster here for Dongfeng race team. This is a team that's vying for first place overall and went into the last leg tied on points with the race leader, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but then had to retire on the last leg due to a broken mast. So nice for them to get their boat back on the water. Not only have it back on the water, sailing, but sailing well.
Yeah, it's always tough to pick yourself up after something like that in this race, and you talk about it a lot within the team, so that's sometimes the really tough times that define how good a team is, and it's all about how you pick yourself back up, you get back up on the horse, and this is a nice way to say, yep, now we're back on our feet, lads, and we're ready for it.
And working through the night for the shore team and for the boatyard crew, getting the mast in the boat and getting it all setting up. Now there is a great image of the racecourse. You can see the pressure coming in from the horizon, from the top of your screen. Alvi Medica and the Spanish team Mafre starting to come down with some real pace, and if I was on board Dongfeng, I'd be feeling a little bit nervous. This race is not over.
Yeah, well, Russell Coates, he sort of had a golden rule, you should never look over your shoulder, so you don't have to worry about your opposition behind you, but I'm pretty sure they'll be looking over their shoulders at the moment. You can see the sails are very eased, but so that means they're getting lifted, so we'll probably see them slowing down, but just look at Alpha Medica's sails just setting, Dongfeng's are just hanging there, so I think we're going to see a little bit of compression here.
Dongfeng's Code Zero just hanging there limp in the wind, and the speeds, 2 knots on board Dongfeng, 5, maybe 6 knots on board Alvi Medica, so they really are starting to compress at the moment. Now we're with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker on the helm, looking quite calm, looking quite relaxed. You can see how lightly he's holding onto that wheel, just those tiny little adjustments, and as you were alluding to earlier, it's not just him adjusting that wheel, but everything's being adjusted together. The sails, the main, the foresail, and potentially the keel as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you can see Cherney's just gone out of shot there, but Cherney is trimming the mainsail. He's sailed around the world, I think, 4 or 5 times, and he's just chatting away there about what he sees happening on the water there, and you can see him just darting back and forth, minor adjusting on the mainsail there. He's just working it the whole time, keeping his body down to keep the windage down, anything they can do.
And so difficult for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, and in fact, almost all the teams here, because everyone's had a little bit of a piece of the lead, and Dongfeng race team, they're in the lead at the moment, but they're not going to be able to feel confident about it because they might be rolled here by Alvi Medica and Mafre coming downwind with this new breeze.
Yeah, and everyone's heading up to if you're looking at your screens at the moment, everyone's out towards the left-hand side of the racetrack and getting hard over into that left-hand corner, which means if the wind stays in the direction it's in the moment, they might have to find a way of driving out, or they've got to get dead downwind to the finish, and that could take an awfully long time.
Well, there is how it looks at the moment. Team Brunel towards the back. They really hung out for a long time from the top of the course, waited forever to put that jibe in, and it didn't quite work out for them. Dongfeng race team out in the lead, but the big question at the moment is when to jibe. This breeze is not going to take them down to the finish. They're going to have to jibe down to the finish, and as we've seen, any jibe, any tack, any manoeuvre really kills the boat speed.
It's brutal. I mean, really the game that's going on out there today is who can build boat speed the quickest and who's lucky enough to get a puff when you do decide to do a manoeuvre like that. I mean, that's one of the things that's in the conversation on board. Could be as a bigger factor as a wind shift. You actually say, hey guys, we've got pressure, let's do this manoeuvre now, because you can actually get out of it and get going.
Well, in fact, as you can see, Dongfeng race team, their Code Zero starting to furl, so they are going to go for their jibe. They are now jibing for the finish.
Ian's
the big question is, can they keep the speed? Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing jibing directly on top of them. Simultaneous jibe as the Code Zero starts to furl. This is going to be a real pressure moment. It's all going to come down to who can build the boat speed back up after this jibe.
Absolutely. They've found a nice little something to go in. You can get a good telltale will be where the tops of the mainsails pop. Mafre going as well, so they're all on the port. So I think probably what's happening, and you're looking at this shot here in front of you, there's a nice little bit of dark patch on the water there, so they're obviously also driving for a bit of pressure. but they won't be pointing at the finish here. It's going to be dead downwind from there to the finish, I think, from where they look at the moment.
Indeed, at that shot that we can see at the moment, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing pointing very high, aggressively high out of that jibe, trying to get a little bit of breeze on the boat. Ian Walker knows how important it is just to get a bit of boat speed. You can see Charles Cordrelia just looking over his shoulder, and there is that dark patch that he can now see. Starting to come in, and on the right-hand side of your screen, Team SCA coming in from the right-hand side of picture. They've got a little bit of breeze. Alvi Medica on the left, yet to jibe into that pressure. They're obviously confident it's going to still keep working down that side. So about halfway down this final leg, and the race is just coming straight back together, completely bunched up with almost impossible to call a leader. Canute, from where you are on the water, which side of this course is going to pay?
Well, I think we were just talking about this, me and Nico, about where would you put the money, you know, like. And I tell you, Bowie Becking, I mean, as we said on the top mark, you kind of have to set yourself up early. You can't just swap sides suddenly. And he may come back because the breeze is coming in from behind. There's nothing really for the leaders in the front, at least on this side of the racetrack. So I think it's going to be fairly close here between Abu Dhabi and Brunel. But Abu Dhabi still has to make that jibe if Brunel can lay the finish line, but that's also a question. At the moment they're not laying, so they all have to jibe, but this is certainly not over for Brunel at all, not at all.
Well, we're seeing from the overhead images at the moment, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, some nervous movements on board the boat, trying to keep everything cool, but Team Brunel, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Dongfeng Race Team are almost in a complete three-way tie for first place, with Alvi Medica, Mafre and Team SEA all closing down on top of them. And I can just read the speedo on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just below the boom there, 4 knots. So they've managed to get the boat going, but there is the virtual eye image. Team Brunel coming in from the left-hand side of your screen. They've managed to turn that loss into actually quite a commanding position. They're looking good at the moment.
Yeah, they've done well, and like I said, it's all about committing early. You know, you've got to invest in something out there, and but you've got to be willing to not look so good for a while, or deal with the frustrations of getting yourself into that position. And it's I mean, maybe they saw something coming off the beach there. I'm not too sure, but it looks like they're just nosing into a little something there. But we're talking fractions of pressure. There's not a lot of breeze out there.
And of course, we can't get too excited, because every single time we've called a leader in this race, the leader's changed only a few moments later. So Team Brunel at the moment vying for the lead. They are neck and neck with Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Dongfeng Race Team to leeward of those two boats. Any one of those boats could claim the lead if they just get a slight puff and they just gain 1 or 2 meters.
Yeah, it's looking down to leeward there. Just keep an eye on how he's going with the other guys. He'll be looking to push down over their bows with any little bit of pressure he can get at the moment. And as we can see, they're still not anywhere near the ley lines for the finish. So all these boats could potentially have a couple more jibes to do.
Now, an interesting image that we could just see a moment ago was the finish line is not square with where these boats are coming in from. One side of this line is much closer to these boats, so it's not only a case of getting to the finish line, but just like any mark of the course, a little bit of tactics about which end of the line you go for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, basically it's down to the shortest distance, and when you're sailing conditions like this, you don't want to have to sail an inch further than you have to. So they'll all be they'll be positioning themselves and lining themselves up to get there as quickly as they possibly can.
Team Brunel just getting that code 0 set, just starting to get everything away. We're heading our way down to the finish. We have a time limit for this race. The race has to be completed within a certain time limit, and that's only 18 minutes away. Ooh. So we could actually see this race being stopped short and nothing counting, unless one of these teams can close down that 700 meters to the finish within 18 minutes. Everything, all this hard work is going to be thrown out. Richard, do you think they're going to make it?
I don't know. I think it'd be pretty close, actually. It's definitely not, there's not going to be 5 minutes in it. It'll be down to the wire. Well, I don't know. There'd be a lot of hard work to have to do to not finish this race.
Well, let's go down to Canute and see what he thinks on the water, because closing down 700 meters in 18 minutes is going to be tough. Canute, can we make it?
Well, I think Brunel and Abu Dhabi are both sailing into more wind. I mean, there's definitely something in the south. You don't want to swap with Alvi Medica. Alvi Medica just went a little further than Mapfre, and Team Alvi Medica got shot out of the back. And they were just a couple of boat lengths behind Mapfre at some stage, and now they're they're sitting in no breeze, and I think Bowie Becking, he saw that he had the gain up here, and there's more breeze to come on that side, so no, there is some breeze. I mean, whether they make the time limit, that's another question.
Well, Knut, let me ask you the impossible question. If we do get to the finish line, who's it going to be? Who do you think's going to win?
Well, I'm not allowed to say that. Well, what do you think, Nico? Nico, what do you think?
Oh, nice. Well, you know, I'm sure the track has got Brunel in front at the moment, but Abu Dhabi have been doing such a good job beneath them here. Yeah, I'm going to still say that Abu Dhabi can get there, even though right at this point in time, Brunel's in a commanding position.
I'll say Brunel then, so we have a bit of a discussion. But Brunel's looking pretty good there. I mean, it's all about how much wind they have in that jibe. So if they have speed and wind in the jibe, they will come out on a decent angle. If not, they're going to point that back at each other. So.
Well, there is the layout of the race at the moment. Team Brunel are in the lead, but as you can just see from their tracks going down, all boats have started to come a little bit round to the left-hand side. They were looking like they were going to get a little bit closer to that finish line, but actually they've all been bent up very close for the first three. A Dongfeng race team, that's the red sails to the left-hand side, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing on top of them, and then Team Brunel. But don't discount just behind them Mafre, the Spanish team, and also Team FCA. If we get another hole in the breeze, if we get another park-up situation, anyone could take this.
Oh, absolutely. It's just it's down to a little local puff there and just keeping it rumbling. I think Abu Dhabi looking pretty good at the moment. So they're able to separate down. It's really massive. The biggest determining factor out here at the moment, apart from the wind, is crew manoeuvres. And if you can get down to the finish line without having to jibe, or only doing in one jibe, another guy has to do two. That equates to enormous distances. Looks like Brunel think it's time to jibe, time to go. So they're jibing to starboard, become the right-of-way boat on Abu Dhabi, forcing them behind.
This could be a very aggressive manoeuvre in light winds, something you don't normally see in light winds. It's normally about being conservative with your boat speed. They furled up the code zero, a relatively quick jibe. If that code zero can just start to set, we're going to have a port and starboard here between Team Brunel, the right-of-way boat, and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. And it looks like Team Brunel might just sneak ahead without Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing having to make too big of an avoiding turn. What would you do here, Richard, if you were on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing? Would you go aggressive as well?
I don't know. I think I'd keep going straight. If you're going to jibe in there and you muck it up, you'll be in a world of trouble trying to deal with them. So depends where the breeze is. If they think they can cross and get into good pressure, you just keep going straight. I think that's what Ian's going to do here.
Well, the crew are still on the bow of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, so it doesn't look like they've got any plans to jibe on top of Team Brunel. Electing to go onto the other side of the racecourse. Maybe Ian Walker and his team just see a little bit more breeze out there, but let's not discount Dongfeng race team. They've had the lead, they've lost the lead, they've taken the lead back again. Team Brunel and Dongfeng race team look set for another port starboard. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just sticking a little bit there in the breeze. They just lost a bit of flow over that code zero.
Just going into the swell a little bit there as well. I think looks like starboard downwind is a slightly easier jibe to be sailing on. It'll be interesting to see what Bao does here, whether he crosses Dongfeng's line or he goes to their line and jibes back and sort of just positions himself in a full covering role between the boats behind him. I mean, pretty soon here they're coming down the funnel. It's your options are going to become less and less as you get closer to the finish line. KP will be working out which is the closer end. It looks like the left-hand side at the moment. So I think you'd just be doing everything you can to stick yourself between the opposition and the finish.
And it looks like it's working very well here for Bauer Becking here on board Team Brunel. They are starting to push their way out in front. They look to me by that angle they're going to cross clear ahead of Dongfeng race team. Dongfeng race team aren't going to have to avoid. And Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, if they can't find a new breeze, new pressure out on that left-hand side of the course as you look downwind, Team Brunel, they maybe are going to take this.
Yeah, they could well do, but as we've seen, awful long way to go still, And we're fighting the time as well. Let's not forget that. I'm not actually sure exactly how long we've got to go.
I believe we've got 12 minutes left to go to close down this final few meters to the finish. Team Brunel out in the lead, Dongfeng race team and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing chasing hard. Just behind them, Mafre, Team SCA, and then Team Alvia Medica just slipping out making a slightly bad decision on the breeze.
Well, it's going to be getting quite crucial here, because if Brunel and a couple of other boats finish within the time limits and then the other boats don't, then that could have an interesting point situation.
Well, I think the time limit will be made on the first boat crossing. The time limit for one boat to cross. As long as one boat crosses, then the race does stand. The other boats then have 20 minutes to cross the finish line. So they need to cross within 20 minutes. So it almost sounds like they should be able to do that because the racing is so close, but it can take an age just to sail 4, 5, 6 boat lengths.
Well, absolutely. I mean, probably the bunch of boats we're looking at the moment would make it within that time limit, but it could actually become an issue for Alpha Medica, especially if the breeze shuts down any more than it has.
Well, Team Brunel, they look like they're starting to feel a little bit more solid out in the lead. Dongfeng Race Team, they had the lead at one point. They had it by 131 meters. They looked great. Now they're having a serious attack to weather by Mafre, the Spanish boat, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to leeward, and also Team SEA. So we could see Dongfeng Race Team losing out quite large here. Team Brunel just looking a little bit light. That swell not quite able to push them down towards the finish, but we are within maybe 300, 400, 500 meters to go to the finish. 10 minutes to go before the time limit runs out. It's pretty close. They're not only racing each other, they're racing the clock.
Yeah, this is tough. Looks like a little bit of header coming down the racetrack here. Abu Dhabi look like they've just got a little bit of a puff as they go out of shot there. All the boys on the bow of Brunel there, they'll be pretty keen to get over the finish lines. Looks like Johnny Portman's enjoying himself up there.
They look like there was a few smiles on board that boat, but don't celebrate too early, boys. This could not go your way if the breeze decides to change its mind.
No, you don't want to jinx it, but I don't know. What do you say? You better be lucky than good, right?
Absolutely. Well, if they win this is the first import victory for Team Brunel. This will be a big moment for them. They are at the moment joint first in the import series, and a win here will put them onto the top of the import leaderboard. There is the finish line that you can see, the yellow square buoy at the top of the screen and the white square buoy at the bottom. Maybe 3 boat lengths to go. Team Brunel, they're going to be able to cross the finish line here. They look set to do it.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good for this one. So they just sneak their way across. So I think they're a pretty safe bet as long as they can wiggle it across.
Well, just quickly, Canute, it looks good for getting Team Brunel across this line.
Well, they are going to make it. They're definitely going to make it. What is more interesting is why Ian Walker decided to not jibe on top of them and cross their stern. Big mistake. I saw some of his trimmers were trying to convince him, and they were pointing, and he had made his mind up. But he's risking obviously having both Dongfeng and Mapfre in front of him. But right now the wind is dropping big time on the finish line. So Brunel is getting across right now. There Brunel won the import race.
Well,
so
there
congratulations.
goes the Team Vestas Wind import race. Itajai, Team Brunel take their first import race win. Very hard fought victory for the boys on board Team Brunel. Bauer Becking, he's going to be very happy.
He'll be happy with that. He's a bit of a fox Bauer in the light airs as well. He spent a lot of time sailing the Mediterranean. He's a very, very good light air sailor. Kept it cool and calm out there. You could actually say probably they were one of the most aggressive boats in the racecourse today.
Well, the battle for second place is still raging. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing to leeward, Dongfeng Race Team on top, but Dongfeng Race Team having to bear away to try and lay the line, and you can see how punishing that is on the Code Zero. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they're able to come up, and they've got good breeze, they've got good pressure, good boat speed. This could go Abu Dhabi's way. Yeah. They're just getting over the bow of Dongfeng Race Team. This is going to be so difficult for Charles Caudrelier and the Chinese boat, watching a team just sail right through the lee of your sails.
One puff could change this entirely, but looks like Ian's got the angle there. He's in front now, and he will come coasting along into a comfortable second. Look at this, SCA coming in play as well.
Double Olympic medalist, the British sailor Ian Walker takes Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing across the line, only a few meters ahead of Charles Caudrelier and his Chinese team Dongfeng Racing. Behind them, Mafre and Team SEA neck and neck. That came down to meters there for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
Here we go.
But here's the battle now for fourth and fifth. Team SEA coming in just as Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing did, lower and with pressure. Mafre having to bear away, stop dead.
Stop dead, yeah. And well, the girls have done well to fight their way back into this position, I'd say, because that penalty is so expensive in those conditions. And like Nico said, probably a bit of a tough call because you don't have a lot of options when you're not moving.
So those final last few meters, that's what the race all came down to. That last angle that you came into that start line. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing got that lower edge and they were able to put the bow up and find speed, and you can just see how punishing it is for Mafre having to bear away. As soon as you bear too far away from the breeze, the code zero stops working.
Absolutely. I must just say one thing here. Tough day for Bill O'Hara. Nice work by the race committee for getting a great race underway. It was pretty interesting.
And very characteristic of the Volvo Ocean Race this year. Very, very tight. Alvi Medica now coming in 6th place. They're going to bring up the rear of the fleet. Disappointing for them. You know, this is a team that started off their Volvo Ocean Race campaign winning the import race in Alicante, and they've failed to do that yet again. So Canute, you're in front of Team Brunel. Smiles all round?
Smiles around. Looks like you're very happy. I mean, as Bowie, he's kind of shaking his hand going, that was a close one. You know, that could have gone. That could have gone anyway, and I think, well, Ian got out of jail there, didn't he, Nico?
Yeah, like that was a crucial moment for him then, that little bit of indecision whether to jive, and that could have really paid poorly for them. But I think they should be pretty happy with the second in there. They were the most consistent boat, and they just squeaked through at the finish.
Well, we always say in this race that it's never going to be what you expected it was going to be, you know, like, and people think, well, Abu Dhabi has it sorted. Maybe now Brunel is starting on a big ride, you know. Do you think so? Think they can come back in the race overall now then?
I think this is this was such a tough race in regards to like just how light air it was. To be honest, I wouldn't read too much into the results today. It was so light air, but it was pleasing to see. To me, Abu Dhabi hung in there the most consistent all day.
But it can have a psychological effect for the start tomorrow and the first days, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be big light air sections, and I think you still keep seeing the good guys handle them better than the others.
Well, Alvi Medica now coming across the finish line to take a slightly disappointing 6th place for them, but in light winds, if it doesn't go your way, you can't blame yourself too much. It really was tough racing out there. Let's have a little bit of a look at how those scores now will be dealt out to each of the teams. It's so good to see Team Brunel taking their first victory here in Itajai, the Team Vestas Wind import race. It's been a tough campaign for Bao Becking and his team, and a 7th time here at the Volvo Ocean Race, and on paper a fantastic team. Now finally he sits on top of a import race. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just behind him in 2nd. Dongfeng Race Team, Team SCA, Mafre all crossing the finish line very, very close together. Team Alvi Medica coming behind in 6th place. Let's have a look at the overall positioning for the import series. And remember, this import series, so important. This will act as the tie-break if we get to Sweden and boats are ranked together on points. Team Brunel now take the lead in the import series, 1 point ahead of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. So this is now Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They're not leading both leaderboards. Team SCA holding on into 3rd place. Pretty good racing for Team SCA, Richard.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see the way they came back into that brutal to cop a penalty out there today, and they managed to keep it all together and finish in a very credible 4th.
Well, Canute, we're just wondering if we can get your final thoughts from you and Chris on the racing today.
Well, I think we're very, very fortunate that we got the race at all, because it was very, very tricky conditions. It's all kinds of this difficult decision for the race management, because the alternative is to use the first lap tomorrow, which is also not really a nice alternative, and also the forecast tomorrow is light. And we have spoken to the sailors about this after the Abu Dhabi import race that was very light, and we all agreed that we're always better off getting racing. And in these boats, which is maybe different to Olympic classes and other classes, the sailors have to be good at any angle, any direction, any wind speed. Nico, what's your final thought?
Yeah, to me it's like the one design rule. It's the same for everybody. Everyone's got the same conditions out here, and it's just a matter of how you use it. We've seen some lead changes, but I think we've also seen a lot of really good, smart work by the people on the podium to position themselves correctly for the breeze.
Well, there in the middle of your screen, Team Brunel victorious today. A fantastic result for them. and a great way to really kick off the second half of the Volvo Ocean Race. So tomorrow will be the start of leg 6, the 5,000-mile race to Newport, Rhode Island. If you haven't done so already, download the Volvo Ocean Race app. It's the best way to keep in touch with all the action. All our live broadcasts are on there and all the info from the teams, the tracker. It's the best way to stay in touch. So it's been a great day to be out here on the water, but of course, one team that we haven't seen on the water today, Team Vestas Wind. Chris Nicholson, kind enough to join us for our on-water commentary, but of course, we're all waiting in tense anticipation for when that team gets their way back out onto the water. The team have been hard at work out in Italy preparing their boats. It's going to be great when they come back. Final thought, Richard?
Yeah, it'll be nice to see those guys back in the race. It'll be it's going to be a huge achievement to see that team back in there, and we'll probably see them in around about Lisbon. But boy, it's going to be, looking at this today, it's going to be a pretty hot race by the time we get to Lisbon.
Well, to say goodbye to everybody and thanks for watching, let's take a little bit of a look at an update from Team Vestas Wind. Thanks for joining us today.
Right now we're in the position where we've actually got a boat. So right now the hull is now attached to the deck. We're in the process right now of assembling the boat. We're going through everything from getting all the deck winch pedestal system back on, main sheet pedestals, and then going right through the rest of the boat. We kind of have a core group of jobs we need to finish before really any systems can be offered up to the boat, which is still a couple of weeks away. So we've got a pretty busy team inside the boat doing an enormous amount of detail laminating and finishing off certain components that just we can't get anything happening until these really get in. And then we've basically divided up the workforce here into teams, and each one of them, they've got almost like a team leader and a task force that work with them to try and knock out the bigger projects that are still to happen. Now we're in the beginning of what I'd call the fit out of the engine bay. I mean, right now there's one of Volvo Penna's finest, the green machine, the D275. The reality of it is an incredibly reliable engine. If that shuts down, pretty much everything shuts down for you. You've got no means to run your hydraulic system, charge batteries, all that kind of stuff. So gone through the whole process of getting all the keel structure that you would have seen earlier that was outside on the shop floor. This has now been installed in the boat using the required jigs and everything. So basically we're bulkhead D, which is the primary structural bulkhead in the boat. Bulkhead E here, which helps carry a lot of the structural load from the keel. The two ram wells that the Caraboni hydraulic rams go in that run the keel system. It looks like a bit of a war zone in here right now. The reality of it is we've had up to 4 to 6 guys in here every day just finishing off all the secondary bonding, the final fitting of everything. We've had the race measurer here this week for a couple of days. He's just been taking some measurements to make sure that everything's as it can be so that we have no little surprises later on. So over 40 days we have left before we're on a truck, and then I think it's just under 50 before we're trying to be sailing, or maybe a bit over 50, but the reality of it is, we've got quite a timeline that we're up against. From day one, it's been an ambitious schedule, without a doubt. I mean, by no means are we falling behind that schedule. The boat's one thing, we've still got then the added complexity of once we get to leave the yard, we've still got to get the boat to Lisbon in 7 days, and that's a whole different story again of logistics. But again, that's all going on nicely in the background, and we have a good plan A and a good plan B for that. But for right now, even just with the meetings we've had with the yard here over the last couple of days, there's a very concerted and conscientious effort to make sure that we can try and finalise the boat building before the end of April.